Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Gossips 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Grand Hall at Forrester Creations had never looked so opulent, with golden chandeliers sparkling like 1,000 tiny suns overhead, and the soft glow of candlelight casting flickering shadows across the white silk-draped tables. Every guest was dressed to the nines, from Brooke and Ridge, who stood together in their understated elegance, to the younger generation of Forresters, whose excitement and nerves shimmered just beneath their poised appearances. Hope glowed in her exquisite gown, a delicate lace overlay hugging her frame, her hair perfectly coiled into soft waves that framed her radiant, slightly anxious face. Liam, standing tall at the altar, looked every bit the devoted groom, his eyes locked on Hope's, a mixture of love, reverence, and the tiniest tremor of uncertainty that only someone who had weathered storms as personal and public as theirs could carry. The soft hum of music filled the background as the officiant cleared his throat, a calm before the storm, and everyone leaned in, expecting the vows that would bind two hearts together, two families entwined in love, hope, and the ever-present drama of the Forrester legacy. Sheila's entrance, however, shattered the delicate equilibrium of the room before anyone could even realize she had moved. It wasn't the door opening with the faintest squeak or the rustle of her signature leopard print coat that drew attention. It was the aura around her, sharp and electric, a kind of chaotic energy that instantly made people turn. Her eyes, wild yet calculating, swept the room until they landed squarely on Hope and Liam, and the faintest smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. The murmur started immediately, a ripple of confusion and anticipation, as guests whispered to each other, sensing that Sheila had come not as a spectator but as a harbinger of turmoil. Sheila stepped forward, her heels clicking rhythmically against the polished marble floor, each step measured yet imbued with the unshakable confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was about to unleash. Liam's brow furrowed as he recognized her, a flash of dread crossing his face. Hope instinctively grabbed his hand, squeezing it as if to anchor herself against some impending shock she couldn't yet see. Then Sheila spoke, and the words ripped through the wedding hall like a thunderclap on a clear day. "No, this can't be true," she exclaimed, her voice loud enough to silence the soft classical music that had been playing, and everyone turned fully now, sensing the gravity in her tone. Guests froze mid-conversation, forks half-raised, champagne flutes paused in mid-air, and even the officiant stepped back, his composure faltering. The room's attention locked onto Sheila as she took another step forward, holding something in her hand that seemed to glint ominously in the ambient light. Hope's face went pale, her grip on Liam's hand tightening so much it left faint indentations on his skin. Liam himself looked torn between disbelief and rising anger, his jaw tightening, his mind racing. Sheila raised her hand, the piece of paper trembling slightly as she clutched it, and the silence was absolute, the tension so thick it felt as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. "I've waited for this moment," Sheila continued, her eyes glinting with a mix of triumph and vindication, "because no one else would tell you the truth, and you deserve to know before it's too late. Hope, Liam, you're not marrying who you think you are." Gasps erupted like a chain reaction throughout the hall. Brooke gasped audibly, placing her hand over her mouth, while Ridge's brow knitted tightly, a storm brewing behind his eyes. Steffi's face fell, and even Thomas, standing at the back, felt the weight of impending disaster. Hope's hand trembled in Liam's as she tried to process Sheila's words, her mind a blur of confusion, disbelief, and the painful echo of some looming betrayal. Sheila didn't give them a moment to react before she dropped the bombshell. "Liam, the man you believe is your father, he isn't. And Hope, the truth about your baby." Sheila paused dramatically, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "It's not what you've been told." The words hit like a physical blow. Liam staggered slightly, as if the air itself had been knocked out of him. Hope's eyes widened, a mixture of horror and incomprehension etching itself onto her features. Murmurs escalated into full-blown whispers, then shocked exclamations, as the assembled guests realized that the foundation of what they had believed, the family ties, the future they had envisioned, the very legitimacy of this wedding, was being called into question in real time. Sheila's voice grew louder, sharper, and almost predatory as she continued. "Yes, that's right. You've all been living in a lie. And I?" She pointed at herself dramatically, her gaze piercing Hope's. I am the one holding the evidence that will tear it all apart. Liam's face went ashen, his mind racing through every conversation, every memory, trying desperately to reconcile the woman standing in front of him with the motherly figure he thought he had known. Sheila. What are you talking about? Liam stammered, his voice tight with emotion. Hope's breath caught in her throat, her grip on Liam's arm tightening as tears welled in her eyes. Sheila smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made everyone instinctively recoil. The kind of smile that promised chaos and heartbreak. Oh, Liam. You always were too trusting. And Hope, sweet, naive Hope, you thought your life was finally secure. But your world? Your little perfect wedding? It's about to collapse. With that, she held up a folder, letting the camera, or in this case the horrified guests, catch a glimpse of documents, photographs, and a few DNA test results peeking from inside. These are the truths no one wanted you to see. The paternity tests, the hospital records. Everything you've been told was carefully orchestrated lies. And I have the pleasure of exposing it all. Hope's knees felt weak as she sank slightly, clutching Liam's hand for support, her mind spinning. The music had stopped completely, replaced by the rising, startled whispers that seemed to fill the cavernous hall. Brooke was stepping forward, trying to take control of the situation, but Ridge held up a hand, his eyes dark, calculating, and protective. Sheila, Ridge said slowly, his voice low but commanding. Enough. You don't get to ruin this day. Sheila laughed, a sound that was both cruel and gleeful. Oh, Ridge, always trying to be the hero. But you can't stop this. You can't undo the truth. By now, the guests were in full shock, some whispering prayers, others looking around for explanations. Steffi's face was pale, Thomas looked torn, and even the usually composed Katie seemed frozen mid-step, unable to decide whether to intervene or step back. Hope was shaking visibly, her heart pounding, and Liam, normally so collected, looked ready to either explode or collapse. Mom! Sheila! What are you saying? Hope's voice cracked, barely audible over the rising tension. Sheila's eyes gleamed with triumph as she finally let the full weight of her revelation sink in. Hope! Liam, you're about to learn that your families are not what you thought. The baby you're about to bring into this world. The paternity isn't what anyone told you. And Liam, your father? He's not your father. None of it is as it seems. Liam's face contorted with anger, confusion, and disbelief, his hands gripping Hope's tightly. No, this can't be true, he shouted, his voice breaking through the stunned silence of the hall. Guests instinctively leaned back, some clutching their hearts, others frozen mid-step. Sheila's smirk widened as she slowly approached the couple, her voice dropping into a dangerous whisper. It is true. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you'll see. The world you thought you knew? Gone. Hope's tears spilled over, cascading down her cheeks as she clung to Liam, her voice barely a whisper. Liam, what are we going to do? Liam swallowed hard, his knuckles white around her hand, his mind spinning in panic, betrayal, and anger. As Sheila stood there, the picture of chaos incarnate, the room seemed to shrink around Hope and Liam. The once perfect wedding now a stage for a nightmare they couldn't have anticipated. Every guest felt the shock, the tension, the heart-stopping dread that something so sacred could be shattered in a single cruel moment. And in that moment, the world of the Forresters, the Logans, and everyone in that glittering hall had shifted irreversibly, leaving Hope and Liam to face a devastating, unimaginable truth that would haunt them, and the audience, for weeks to come. The silence that followed Sheila's revelation was suffocating, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, the chandeliers above casting fractured, trembling reflections on the stunned faces of the guests. Liam stood frozen, his hand still gripping Hope's, as if letting go would mean surrendering to the nightmare unfolding before him. Every nerve in his body screamed against the truth, even as part of him feared it might be real. His mind raced, colliding memories with reality. The whispers in hospital corridors, the subtle inconsistencies he had long dismissed, the odd behavior of people he had trusted implicitly. Now each memory became a fragment of betrayal, a puzzle that suddenly made horrifying sense. He wanted to shake Sheila, to demand answers, to silence the chaos, but his body refused to cooperate, frozen in disbelief. Hope, meanwhile, felt her world crumbling beneath her feet. The pristine wedding she had envisioned, the life she had imagined with Liam, the love that had always been her anchor. It all seemed to dissolve into smoke and ashes. She clung to Liam, her nails digging into his palm, her tears falling freely now, streaking down her flawless makeup, washing away the carefully crafted composure she had maintained all day. She could hear her own heartbeat, a frantic drum in her ears, as her mind tried desperately to comprehend what Sheila had just said. Her voice trembled as she whispered, This isn't possible. It can't be." Liam's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to Sheila, then to the shocked faces of family and friends. I need proof," he finally managed, his voice low but edged with steel, a fragile lifeline amidst the storm. Sheila's smirk widened, the very picture of triumph. "Proof?" she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm and malice. "Oh Liam, the proof is right here." She held up the folder again, letting the documents peek out, glinting in the chandelier light. The paternity tests, the hospital records, everything. "I've brought the truth with me, and it's devastating. You thought your family was solid, your baby's future secure? It's all a lie, and I am the one who will finally set things straight." The room seemed to shrink, the collective intake of breath echoing like a wave, sweeping over everyone present. Guests shifted uncomfortably, their whispered conversations a chaotic symphony of disbelief, horror, and speculation. Brooke moved forward, her maternal instincts firing, but Ridge stopped her with a raised hand, his gaze dark, his protective energy practically radiating off him. "Sheila," Ridge began, his voice tight, measured, and dangerous. "You have no right. You will not ruin this day. Not Hope's day, not Liam's." Sheila laughed then, a sharp, piercing sound that made even the most composed guests recoil. "Oh Ridge," she said, her voice almost mockingly sweet. "You always thought you were in control, didn't you? But today, control is an illusion. Today the truth comes first, whether you like it or not." Her eyes flicked to Hope, who shivered despite Liam's reassuring hand on her arm. "Hope, sweet girl, you've always believed in fairy tales and perfect families. But your fairy tale is built on lies. And it's about to come crashing down around you." The room erupted into quiet chaos as family members murmured among themselves, the tension thickening by the second. Brooke, ever the protective mother, stepped forward, placing a hand gently on Hope's shoulder. "Honey," she said, her voice calm but urgent, "we need to stay calm. We don't know exactly what Sheila means. Let's hear her out, but we'll get to the bottom of this." Ridge, standing slightly behind Brooke, his expression a mixture of rage and calculation, nodded, but his hand twitched near his pocket, a subtle reminder that while he would restrain himself for now, he was ready to act if Sheila crossed the line further. Sheila, however, seemed to feed on the tension, enjoying every gasp, every shocked expression. "Hear me out," she said, her eyes narrowing. "I don't need you to hear me out, Brooke. I am not here for approval. I am here to expose the truth. Liam, Hope, you're not ready for this, but you will have to be. The truth does not wait for consent. You will have to face it whether you like it or not." She opened the folder and began to flip through the documents, pausing dramatically at each, ensuring that the visual impact was as jarring as the words themselves. Photos of hospital paperwork, lab results, and scribbled notes were now on display for everyone to see. Hope felt faint, her knees threatening to give out as she stumbled slightly, supported only by Liam's steadying presence. She could see the reactions of their friends and family, each face mirroring the shock she felt internally. Thomas's brow was furrowed, his normally calm demeanor giving way to confusion and concern. Steffi had instinctively stepped back, unsure how to process the revelation, while Katie's hands were clasped tightly together, silent prayers escaping her lips. Even minor guests, attendees from the fashion world, seemed unnerved by the sheer intensity of the moment. This was no longer a wedding. It was a trial by fire, a crucible of secrets that threatened to consume everyone in the room. "Sheila," Hope finally found her voice, trembling, fragile but defiant. "Why now? Why during our wedding?" Her voice cracked with emotion, the sound carrying across the hall. Liam's grip on her hand tightened, his thumb brushing soothingly across her knuckles as he tried to steady both himself and her. Sheila tilted her head, her expression one of mock innocence. "Why now?" she repeated, her voice almost taunting. "Because the truth has no timetable, Hope. And if I had waited, you would have walked down that aisle blissfully ignorant, stepping into a life that wasn't truly yours to claim. I'm doing you a favor. Someday you'll thank me, or at least understand why this had to happen. Anger flickered in Liam's eyes. You call this a favor? He shouted, his voice shaking with emotion. You just destroyed the happiest day of our lives. Do you even understand what you've done? Sheila's smirk never faltered. Oh, I understand perfectly. That's why I'm here. You want control? You want normalcy? That's not reality, Liam. Reality is messy, complicated, and sometimes devastating. Her eyes flicked to Ridge, then Brooke, then the rest of the guests, as if daring anyone to challenge her. And today reality is here in full force. The officiant cleared his throat, attempting to regain some semblance of order, but even his voice trembled slightly. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps we should. His words trailed off as Sheila turned sharply toward him, her presence commanding the room. No, she interrupted, almost violently. No one calms this situation but the truth, and the truth will not be silenced. Hope, Liam, look at these documents. Face them. Understand them. They change everything. Hope's tears fell freely now, her entire body trembling. She looked at Liam, her eyes filled with a mixture of love, fear, and disbelief. Liam, what if she's right? She whispered, her voice barely audible. What if everything we know, everything we believed, is a lie? Liam swallowed hard, his jaw clenched. I don't know, Hope. I want to fight it. I want to tell myself it's not true, but... His voice trailed off as he scanned the papers Sheila was holding, trying to process the possibility that his entire life had been built on a lie he had never suspected. Sheila's eyes gleamed, sensing the emotional vulnerability she had created. Yes, she said softly, almost seductively. Feel it. Feel the shock. The fear. The betrayal. This is what happens when the truth is hidden for too long. And now it's here, and there's no turning back. She allowed herself a slow, deliberate pace toward the couple, her heels clicking on the marble floor like the ticking of a clock counting down the minutes of their innocence. Hope, Liam. I am not your enemy. I am the messenger. And sometimes the messenger is the most hated person in the room. But hate me if you must, I don't care. The truth doesn't need your love. It needs recognition, acknowledgement, and action. Ridge finally stepped forward, his protective instincts overriding his usual diplomacy. Enough, Sheila, he said, his voice a low growl, controlled but dangerous. You're here to manipulate, to control, to create chaos. But this is a wedding, not a courtroom. If you have proof, you will present it properly. Not humiliate my family in front of everyone. Sheila paused, letting his words hang in the air, then smiled, a slow, cold smile. Oh, Ridge, you think rules matter? Control matters? Not when lives are at stake. Today, Liam and Hope's lives, their future, their very understanding of their families are at stake. So yes, I will present it right here, right now to everyone. The world needs to see what has been hidden for so long. Hope's tears had slowed, but her body was still tense with shock. Liam's expression was unreadable, a mix of protective anger and dawning fear. Both of them realized that their wedding had become a battlefield, and Sheila was a formidable opponent who would not relent until her truth, no matter how devastating, was acknowledged by all. Every guest felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a revelation. It was a turning point, a catalyst that would change the course of lives, relationships, and the very fabric of their families. And as Sheila slowly opened the folder fully, the camera of their imaginations capturing every detail, everyone realized, this wedding, this perfect day of love and union, had been irrevocably transformed into the most dramatic, emotional, and shocking event the Forrester family had ever endured.